Nick, very good to see you. Today we get to talk through defining your risk tolerance and expectations for returns. The relationship between risk and return is fundamental when it comes to investing.
Right.
Generally, higher returns come with higher risk, and lower risk typically means lower potential returns. To start, can you explain what risk tolerance is and why it is so important for investors?
I mean, at its core, when we talk risk tolerance, it's great to be with you again. But when we're talking about risk tolerance, we're talking about the capacity that you have to stomach a loss.
Right.
If we think about a roller coaster, there's different types of roller coasters you can be on. You could be on the kiddie coaster. It still goes up and it still goes down, but it's not going to have that real bad stomach feeling. My daughter, Abby, who's 12, I mean, ever since she was 5 or 6, she would never, my son, he's 17. He loves getting on every roller coaster. The more thrill, the better. I mean, he seeks that stuff. But on her side, she never liked the stomach feeling. And so she liked the kiddie coasters. She could do the Elmo, I think it's the Elmo or the Cookie Monster kiddie coaster at SeaWorld. She could do that over and over and over and over again because it was like this kiddie coaster. My son likes the Incredible Hulk. I mean, that thing shoots you out and takes you down. So he can live with that. So he has a high capacity to live through the ups and the downs. And so I look at risk tolerance as almost your ability to figure out what is your capacity to stomach the ups and the downs, because they both happen. You can't just have one without the other. Another way to think about this too is what I call the uncle point. This is something we help people figure out. This is an actual page that we do when we meet with somebody and we're trying to figure out where they're at. We help them figure out their uncle point. So an easy way to think about this is the Christmas Story. Ralphie, if you remember, there's a scene in that movie Christmas Story where the bully takes the kid's hand and takes it behind his back, and the kid says, "Uncle, uncle, uncle."
Right.
That's the same thing here. Is you got to figure out how much are you comfortable losing when the market goes down. Now, most people think about this as a percentage, but you'll see the next part here is, what is that percentage in relation to dollars? And that's the most important things. People will say, oh, I can lose 20%, no problem. What does that actually mean in dollars and cents? If you have a $2 million portfolio, are you okay losing $400,000? And when you put it in dollars and cents, people are like, no, I don't like that.
Right. Feels a little bit different.
Yeah. It changes a little bit their philosophy of it.
I'm glad you brought this up because I want to dive in a little bit more, because clearly there's a lot of thought that goes into this. How do you go about helping clients then define their risk tolerance?
So one of the things that, and most people, they hear the terms conservative, moderate, aggressive. They hear these terms, right? But what does that really mean? I mean, I've had husband and wives both say, we're conservative investors. And the husband will say, yeah, I can go down 15%. And then the wife will say, I don't want to lose one penny.
Right.
But yet both of them say that they're conservative investors. And so that way of pigeonholing people into conservative, moderate, and aggressive is in my mind, maybe a little archaic, maybe a little obsolete, especially when there's other technology out there. A better way is to figure out, and you just had the slide up there, the better way is to figure out what your number is. Look at this as having guardrails, where you have a scale of 1 on the low end. 1 means like money under the mattress. 99 would be like everything in Bitcoin. All right. And so in this example, you can see this person's kind of at the lower end of the range. That means that I guess you could call that conservative. They're a 33. But what this does is it helps us define guardrails. How far up they're okay with the money going and how far down they're okay with that money going. And so in this example, you can see that in a 6-month period, this person is comfortable with the money going up as high as 8.6% or as far down as 5% in a 6-month period. That gives them the guardrails on how their money is allowed to act. Okay. The worst thing that I see, though, is people that will take that risk score. They'll find out that they're a 33. And then when we actually measure what's happening with their real portfolio, they're at a 75 or an 80 or an 85. Their portfolio is way over there.
Right.
And it's a mismatch for where they are.
Can an investor's risk tolerance change over time? Should changes in the market affect our risk tolerance? It
should change over time. There's something called the rule of 100. So a basic rule, and it's also known as a prudent investor rule. And what that means is you take your age and you subtract it from 100. So let's say that you were 20 years old. You take 100 minus 20. That means that you can have 80% of your money in risk, 20% protected. If you're 50 years old, 100 minus 50, now it's a 50-50 blend. 50% protected, 50% at risk. When you're 70, 70% protected, 30% at risk. The reason being is when you're 20, you're still working. You just started working. And so you're building up your wealth. You're not needing that money to get you by because you're working. But when you're 50 or you're 60, that window of time of building up and saving money and creating wealth is narrowing. And so you don't have the opportunity or the luxury to live through major market crashes because you may not be able to make it back. And so your risk tolerance should change over time. And also, when you have markets that go up and down, a lot of people will change their risk tolerance based on what's happening in the market. Hey, the market's up. Oh, I'm more aggressive. The market's down. Well, I'm more conservative. And they're very reactionary at the wrong times. In the end, what you really need to do is create a portfolio that you can live with through both good and sour markets, so that when the market actually does what it does, you can live through it knowing I have the right amount of money over here in a protected world, and the right amount of money over here in the risk world, and I'm okay with those fluctuations because I got a plan that's going to withstand it.
Mm-hmm. So then what is the role of working with an advisor, and how does an accurate risk tolerance define both an investor and an advisor's expectations?
Well, again, going back to those guardrails, if you don't know where to put the guardrails, then what kind of road are you on? You can fly off the road. So the whole purpose of the guardrails is to keep you on the road. Well, you define your road, how far up and how far down I want this to go. And so part of working with a financial advisor is they should really be honing in on the risk in your portfolio. I think what everybody is telling you is that returns are the only thing that matter. What I'm telling you is that's part of it. But also, if I'm shooting for a 15% return, but I can lose 80% of my money in this thing because it's highly volatile, I'm not doing myself a service by ignoring the risks. So you have to have both. You have to know what that is. So a financial advisor should be spending a lot of time. This is what our team does. We spend a lot of time trying to figure out where is that risk tolerant? How are they feeling? What is their risk number? And then figuring that out. So first we got to find out your risk number. And then what we do is take their current portfolio and stress test it and find out, okay, so if you are a 40 risk score, what is your portfolio? Well, my portfolio is a 70. Okay. Your portfolio is a 70, you're a 40. We have to make some reallocations to bring it in line to where you are. So that's the importance of doing this. But I think a lot of people, they don't. They're just shooting for returns, and then they apologize when the market goes down. And in reality, you need to figure out a plan that can withstand both good and sour markets and help your money last until you're into your late 90s, at least into your late 90s.
Right. Interesting. Clearly, Nick, you put a lot of thought into this. This is much more thorough than the 10 questions I think I answered for my target date fund.
The conservative, moderate, aggressive. Yeah, I know.
If somebody would like to speak with you to create that financial plan that is in line with their very own unique risk tolerance, what's the best way to reach you?
So the best way to reach us is just to give us a call at the office here. It's 844-GROUP-10. And you can schedule a 15-minute strategy session call for stress testing. We can figure out what your risk score is. We can send you a link that will help you identify it from the comfort of your home. We can send you the link. You're sitting in your chair, and you can take this in 5 minutes, know what your risk number is, and then we can actually take your investments. And it's like a shopping cart at the grocery store. We can scan your investments in and figure out what is the score for your portfolio, and there, once and for all, you can find out where you are, where your investments are, and that can tell you if you need to rebalance everything, if you're on track, or maybe if you're off track, and what can be done about that. So give us a phone number and we can set up a strategy session to do that for people. It's absolutely free.
Great. Nick, thanks for your time today.
Great being with you.